All right. Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about NoSQL and document databases. Before we talk about specifically NoSQL and document databases, let's talk about what databases are. If you've already taken the SQL course, then you're already familiar with it. But if not, a database is where you store all of your data for an application. The data is what actually drives the application. If you think of any website you go to, a social website like Twitter or Facebook, anytime you click on someone's profile, everything you see there, even though it's graphical and visual, it's driven by data. You have the username, you have all the posts. Those posts have content, the date they were posted, who's commented on them, what the comment is, the date the comments were made. Those are all pieces of data that can be represented by just text, just data and numbers, dates. Then we take that data when we're building an application and we make it more visually appealing. So in this lesson today, we're going to be talking about one type of database, a NoSQL database, and how we can store and retrieve and create and delete and update and manage data within that database in order to drive an application. The scope of this lecture is not getting into the application interacting with the database. Right now we're going to focus on just the database itself and what it is and how we can use it to manage data. So to get started, the database we're going to be talking about today is MongoDB, and that is a document database. A document database is, it has collections and documents. Each collection, if you're familiar with relational databases, a collection is synonymous to a table. If you're not familiar with relational databases, you can just think of a collection as a collection of pieces of data. Just like the word sounds, collection, it's a collection of things. It is more specifically a collection of documents. Document is the key term we use in a document-based database, and it describes a collection of data. So for example, if you have a customer document, that may have customer name, phone number, email address, age, gender, depending on what the business is. But so each document is a collection of data that represents one entity, and the collection is the collection of documents. So I might have a customer collection, and then inside that I have a bunch of documents. Each document represents an individual customer. The big difference between a document-based database and a relational database is that the document database is schemaless. It does not have a schema. So in our relational databases, the schema is defined in the database itself. The table has specific columns, and if you have a customer table that does not have a specific column and you try to insert something into it with that column that does not exist, you're going to get an error. However, in a NoSQL database, you can enter whatever you want into a collection. The schema is not managed at the database level. So for example, I have my customer database, and I say a customer should have first name, last name, email address, and so forth. But nothing is stopping me from entering an animal or an automobile into that collection. So the schema is not managed there. And what this does is it allows flexibility. It allows you to make changes to specific documents if you need to, or say you're going along with your customers, and then you decide, hey, there's this new technology out there, and it gives people an ID that they can be uniquely identified by, or just something else you want to add to the document. Say you weren't tracking middle initial, but for some reason you want to start now. You can just add that into someone. Or say you have a special case where a customer has something specifically that most people don't, you can just add it to that specific document without taking up space in every other document. So the schema is more flexible. That's the benefit to it. The downside is you can insert a cookie into a house collection. So you need to make sure you manage that properly. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen. So let me share screen. All right, so I'm sharing my screen and we're going to talk about downloading Mongo. So if you have not downloaded Mongo yet, the best way to do that, I like to open up Google and type in download MongoDB. The reason I do this is for some reason sometimes I go to the Mongo website and I click on the download page and it takes me somewhere else. So I've just found that doing this works best for me. It takes me to the right page. So I click on the one that says MongoDB Download Center, and you want to choose the community server. The enterprise server is something that you don't want. Choose the community server. Select your operating system. Most of you it's Windows. We probably have some OS X, Macs, and then if you have Linux, choose that. Depending on the age of your computer, most likely you're going to have a 64-bit computer, so that's the one you want to select and download. Hit the download button. Once it downloads, you can go ahead and run that, install it. You can choose all the defaults, and that's perfect. So after you have downloaded it, a lot of you may run into an issue where if you open up your command prompt and you type in Mongo, now it won't do it for mine. Well, actually, let me set it up so it does do it for mine. Give me just a minute. All right, exit out of that. Okay. So a lot of you might run into this issue where you have downloaded it and you run Mongo and it says Mongo is not recognized as an internal or external command. We've seen this a few times, and the reason this is because it's not on your path variable. In software engineering and programming a lot, you're going to run into, you'll have to add things to your path variable. And what that means is if it's on your path variable, you can call it from wherever you want to, and it will execute. So I've got Java. If I run that, I can see my Java help. It tells me everything that I can do with Java. That's because it's installed and I've added it to my path variable. If you have downloaded Mongo and you go into your C drive and then program files, and you can see MongoDB right here, that means you have downloaded it. But if you run Mongo over here and it doesn't work, that means it's not added to your path variable. So what you want to do is drill all the way into there, into your binary folder, bin, and you want to add this to your path variable. This is for Windows users. Also notice, I haven't added it yet, but if I go to program files, MongoDB, I drill all the way back down in there. If I run Mongo from here, see how it shows up? It actually does work because I'm inside the path where Mongo is. So it recognizes that Mongo exists in that path. I just want it to exist everywhere, so I need to add it to my path variable. So you can hit your start button and type in variable, and you'll see something come up. If you're on Windows 7, it'll be edit environment variables for your account. You click on that. If you're on Windows 8 or 10, it's a little different, but look for the one that talks about editing your environment variables. If you're on Windows 7 again, if you don't have a path variable, you can click new and you can call it path. If you do have a path variable, go ahead and edit that. Add a semicolon to the end of whatever's there, and then paste your path that you copied from over here, paste that back into here. Hit OK, OK. If you're on Windows 10 again in that last space, it may not have them all concatenated together as one string separated by semicolons. It will actually have the ability for you to add a new one at a time, and that just makes it even nicer. But it should be pretty easy to see the difference there. Now, if I run Mongo here, it still says it's not recognized as a command. That is because the command prompt, once it's opened, it only recognizes the environment as it was when you opened it. So for the most part, there are some exceptions, but adding something to your path variable does not update that command prompt. So you always have to exit out, open a new command prompt up, and now if I run Mongo, it's working. So I can run it from any directory now, and it shows that it works. Now you might see, well, you should see that the connection failed. That is okay. That's what's expected. We don't have a database server running locally right now, and that's okay. We're not going to set one up. We are going to use MLab to host our databases and communicate through there. So if you have not created an MLab account yet, you need to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and go to mlab.com, and mine's already signed in because I'm there. But let's actually go back here. Once you sign into MLab, we want to create a new database to mess around with, unless you already have one created. So I'm going to, where my database is, grab this on the side here, exit out of that. Environments. Give me just a minute. This isn't the right one. You know, I wonder if I have too many free databases already created. Let's see if I can delete one of these. So if I delete this database, go back here. See. They changed it up. Oh, there we go. Okay. So yes. So to create a new database, you're going to click this Create New here on top, and you want to select Single Node. It's set to Replica Set Cluster. Choose Single Node and click Sandbox. This is the one we want. It's a free option. If you want this one, that's your choice. I'm going to go with the free one. Let's go ahead. You have to give it a unique name. So I'm going to call mine NS 5/17/2017. I can bet on that one being pretty unique. See. All right, good. So that's launching. It's up now. I can click in there. All right. So up here at the top, once you've created a new database, you have two different connection strings. So the first one is how you connect using your CLI, so command prompt or terminal. The second one is how you're going to connect via an application. This is the string that you would copy and you would put somewhere in an application in your code to connect to this database. For now, we're just going to use our command prompt to connect. Before I can connect to it, I have to create a user though. So you go ahead and you click on users, and you can create a new database user. We give mine the name of Nick, and then a password of 98765, 98765, create. So now I have a user on this database that I'm going to use to log in. So if I go ahead and copy this command, now that I've got Mongo added to my, I'm having a hard time with that. Now that I have Mongo added to my path variable, I should be able to open this up, paste that in there. Now I have to replace the -u as my username, Nick, -p is the password, 98765, hit enter, and I'm connected there. Now if I type in show collections, it shouldn't show anything because I don't have any collections. But if I add a collection, remember I said the collection is a collection of the documents that contain the data in the database. Let's add a collection. Let's call this customer. Customers is the name of my collection here. So I go ahead, I can hit the up arrow to go back through my history, hit show collections. We can see now that customers is added. So up to this point, does anyone have any questions? We will ask questions at the end to clarify some things, but does anyone have any questions right now as concerning anything we've covered? Okay, good. We'll keep going forward. All right. So at this point, we have Mongo downloaded, installed, added to our path variable, so we can access it anywhere at any directory in our command prompt. We have created a database on MLab that's hosted remotely on MLab for us to connect to, and we have created a user for that database, and we just created a collection. So let's talk about how are we going to interact with the data in our database. So there's an acronym that is widely used in the industry. The acronym is CRUD, C-R-U-D. That stands for create, read, update, and delete. So the way that you can interact with data is you can make new data or create it. You can view the data or read it, and you can update data that already exists or delete data that already exists. That's really the only four things that you can do with data. And that's why there's the four-letter acronym, CRUD, and that helps us remember, when you're talking about a CRUD application, that's something that can create, read, update, and delete data. So let's talk about the first letter in that acronym, C, which is create, and how we implement that using MongoDB. So if I do db.name of collection, which is customers, so anytime from my command line, if I want to mess with a collection, you do db dot the name of the collection. And then we're going to call whatever we want on it, the action, the method that we want to perform on that. So I want to go ahead and I want to create something new. So let's say insert. Insert is the command we use to create something new, to create a new document inside of our database, inside of our collection. So let's say that the customer is going to have a, notice there is, just like in most programming languages, and this is actually very similar to JavaScript, this is a method call. It has parentheses. We're going to pass in an object literal that is notated by curly brackets. So let's say we want first name. We're going to set this customer's first name to Troy and then separate it by a comma. Notice that this is a key value pair. So the key is first name. That's the property, the first name. And the value that we're giving it is Troy. It's separated by a semicolon. A colon. Then if we want to add another key value pair, another property, we add a comma. So we'll say first name, last name, colon, Sampson. It's Troy Sampson. So now I can go ahead and run that. See how it says inserted one? That means I've inserted one into there. If I go ahead and refresh this page, see how there's document 0? Refresh. Documents 1, that means it worked. Now that's how you create a new document. That's how we insert a new document. Now say I want to see that document. I can run db.customers, or the name of the collection, .find, and that shows the customer we just created right here. Now, if I want to see it in a better format, especially as you get more in there, say I have 100, it'll just print out all mushed up together, hard to see. You can run the same command. So I hit the up arrow to go back through my history. .pretty. See how that comes out a lot easier to read? Now notice, I gave this customer a first name and a last name, but there's this underscore ID. I didn't assign this. This was automatically generated by the database. This is the unique identifier that the database assigns to each document we insert into it. So if I go back up, let's create another one. Let's say Troy has a sister named Sally, same last name. I'm going to insert that. I'm going to go back up again, find.pretty. There's my two customers. Notice they each have a unique ID of their own. These IDs will always be unique. So good. Now, let's talk about removing. So we can create, we can read. What if we need to delete one of these? Let's say Troy no longer wants to be part of this company as a customer. He says, please take me off your records. Okay, so we need to remove him from the database. So I can go ahead. The best way to remove something is by its unique ID. Especially if you have a large database, you might have a lot of Troys. So you can always search for something by ID, but we're going to go ahead and do it by Troy right now because we only have two. So db.customers.remove. That's our delete command in here. And we send in another query that is defined by an object literal or curly brackets. So this query, we can say delete where first name is Troy. Now notice in the queries that I've been doing, the insert queries and this one here, the property doesn't need any quotation marks around it. It's like a variable. You don't put quotations around it. However, the value has, if it's a string, has quotations around it. If it's a number, you don't need it, but if it's a string, you need to have quotations around it. Otherwise, it looks for a variable named Troy. So if I run this now, see how it says removed is 1. I'll go back up and I'll do my find. I now only have Sally. Troy is gone from the database. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to add Troy back in there. Make sure they're both there again. I add them back in again by using my up arrows, going back through the history and running the same command that I created him initially with. So Troy's in there. I want to update Sally. Sally just got married. Her last name's changed. So let's look at how we can update her. So we will say db.collection, name of the collection, db.customers.update. Now we want to update where the first name is equal to Sally. And we want to, let's see, and do the set right there. We want to change her to first name equals Sally still, but last name is no longer Sampson. We want it to be Thompson. So the first object literal here is the query. We're looking for the document where the first name is Sally. Separate by a comma. The second one is what we're going to update it to. So if I run that, it says that 1 was matched, 1 was modified. Let me run my search again. We can see that Sally is now Sally Thompson. We still have Troy Sampson. So that's how you can update it. I believe you can also do it like this. So say we don't want to write the whole thing in because you may run into where you have a large document that has a lot of properties and you don't want to type them all out. You only want to update one individual thing. So you can do something like this where we say set last name to Smith. Let's see if okay, good. So that worked. We find it. It updated the last name just to Smith. So in that one, I didn't have to type out the entire document like I did the first time. I could say, hey, update the document that has the first name of Sally and set just this specific field, last name, to Smith. If you don't have the set and I did it without the set, it would just remove first name and any other properties on there and just create it with Smith. So that's why you'd use set there. With update, there is also something called an upsert. So I could go ahead and say update Sally, and say last name equals I'm like going blank for last names right now. Wonder. So we're going to update where the individual is Sally and Wonder, but if it does not exist, if that individual does not exist, we want to insert it instead. So that's called an upsert. So it either performs an update if the document exists, or it performs a insert if the document doesn't exist. So we know that Sally Wonder doesn't exist right now. So I'm going to go ahead and run that command. And let's check now. There we go. Oh, it added another Sally, but I set the last name to Smith. So it was Sally Wonder, went back to Sally Smith at the end of that query. So let's see. We've gone over inserting data, reading data, and updating data, as well as upserting data, which is either updating or inserting based on what's there. Let's talk about deleting data. Now I've got two Sally Smiths in here. Let's say there was a confusion. They were the same individual, so I need to delete one. So I could go ahead and say, let's see if I can mark this real quick. I want to mark that, copy. All right, so let's go ahead and db.name of collection is customers.remove. Again, we put in our query here. Our query is an object literal. And we want to remove where the underscore ID is equal to, let's paste that right in there. Oh, I didn't copy it. All right, I'll type it out. So it is 591 CC 0 EDEEA 68F 4 BC 86 B9 DC B9 DC8. Okay, hopefully I typed that correctly. Hit enter. All right, let's try removing by name. This will be easier. Go ahead and remove first name is Sally. So it removed two. So it went ahead and removed both of my Sallys. So if I check there, both Sallys are gone. That's why using the unique identifier is best. And I don't know if I mistyped that. But I'd have to find that. So that's how you delete data from the database. Any questions so far? Let me see who's on. Out of that. Okay. So a few more things that I would like to go over, and I need to insert some more data before we talk about this, is some conditionals. So we've looked at how to search by like show me all the ones, show me whose first name is Sally, show me whose last name is Sampson. We saw how to do that to pull all that data. But what if we want to say, you know, where the first name's Sally or Troy, show me both of them. Or the first name Sally and the age is greater than 21. Something like that. There are some key commands that can be used to do that. So I'll show you real quick the commands. that we use. And you can use $ and, or it's just implicit. What I mean by implicit is, let me insert some data in here real quick. So DB, we got, there's an upsert. So I'll go ahead and do that. Now there's 2. So that's good. So what I mean by an implicit and is I can say db.customers.find where the customer is, let's say where first name is equal to Sally. So let's start with this one real quick, see what happens. When I run this, I get back just Sally. Now if I add comma here and I say or first name, no, and last name equals Smith, because Sally's last name equals Smith. I can run that, and I still get back last name Smith. Find first name Sally, last name Smith. Not pretty. Let's run a find on it all real quick. Customer first name, last name Smith. It's actually easier to show when there's more data because you can say, for example, you could say something like, show me where the first name is Sally and the age is 27. And it would show you all the Sallys with age 27. So that's the easiest way to do that. That's an and. It's implicit. You don't actually have to use and. The next one is or, though. This one is not implicit. And we can, so let's say we want to see all the customers with the name of Troy or Sally. So I could do db.customers.find. Let's see, pretty, go back here. We're going to say we want to find it where we have or. So or is going to allow us to enter an array of queries. So in my first query here, the square brackets denote the array. So I have a comma separating these two queries. I can say the first query here is where the first name is equal to Sally. And in this one I can say where the first name is equal to, who do we have, the Troy. Make sure I type that in all right. There we go. See how I got them both back? Now that may not look that different because if I just run find, I get them both back. But imagine there's a lot more data in there. And I've got a ton of different names. This one will return all the customers that have a first name of Sally or a first name of Troy. So very useful to use it like that. Another thing we can do, db.customers.find. Sometimes I like to type out most of the stuff and then go back and add the query. Makes it so I don't miss a curly brace or a parentheses. Let's say I want to find, how do we do this? Where the first name has ly in it. If I run that, see how it turned back Sally? It returns Sally. If you do this, this searches for where it contains the text. So any first name that contained ly would be returned here. So that's useful if you know there's keywords you want to search for that may be in a larger body of text. The last few we can use, conditionals are greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, let's see, in, which you give it an array and say, if it's in this array, return it, or not in. That's saying if it's not in the array, then return it. And one more is not equals. So return all the ones that do not equal it. So let's use this one as an example for not equals. Let's say we want to find where the first name is not Sally. So we can go here, add not equal, first name Sally. Messed something up there. Maybe an older one. Let's try. Oh yeah, I did that wrong. So we want to find it where it's not equal to Sally. So we've got where the first name, I switched those up, where the first name is not equal to Sally. Close off that. Notice how I have to put another bracket around that. So where the first name, then you add another object literal where you're going to add your conditional in there, which is the not equals. So we want to find all customers where the first name is not equal to Sally. We get Troy back. So that is how that works. That covers the majority of the commands you can run. There's always more, and there's always new updates as well, but that covers the majority of the commands that you can run on the Mongo shell in order to interact with your database. So we perform our CRUD operations. Again, we have, let me draw this out here actually too, because this will be helpful. We have CRUD. This stands for create, read, update, delete. And in the command to create in Mongo is insert. The command to read is find. The command to update is update. And the command to delete is remove. So this is the acronym that talks about how we can interact with data. These are the commands that perform these operations in MongoDB. So do we have any questions? All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. I will go ahead and post this video so that those of you who are not able to make it can view it. We also have the new student resource website, which is being posted in the daily Slack notifications. That shows, that has the links you can click to schedule your code reviews and ask additional questions. You can also always email me or any of the other instructors or mentors, and you can set up a code review, email us, Slack us, any of those work. And make sure you look at that daily post that's made in the Slack channel, because that has links to some very useful resources, such as all of the recorded lectures and some quick tutorials that are between 2 and 6 minutes that go over some common stumbling blocks that people run into. So again, thanks for joining us, and I will see you later.